The day my boss called me useless was the day everything changed. I had worked at the company for 3 years, pouring my time and effort into my job. I had never been late, never missed a deadline, and had even taken on responsibilities outside of my role to help the team. But none of that seemed to matter when, in front of my coworkers, my boss looked at me with disgust and said, "You're absolutely useless." His words echoed in my head, sharp and unforgiving. A silence settled over the office, my colleagues exchanging awkward glances, but no one spoke up for me. I swallowed the lump in my throat, nodded once, and turned back to my work. But in that moment, something inside me shifted. If this was how my dedication was repaid, I would no longer waste my energy where it wasn't appreciated. That night, I didn't sulk or drown in self-pity. Instead, I made a decision. I dusted off my resume, updated my portfolio, and started searching for opportunities. I had experience, I had skills, and if my boss couldn't see my value, I was determined to find someone who would. I spent hours applying to jobs, reaching out to recruiters, and even reconnecting with former colleagues who had moved on to better positions. The more I worked on my exit plan, the more I realized how much I had let myself be undervalued. The next few weeks were challenging. I kept my head down at work, performing my duties as usual, but inside, I was already gone. My boss continued to belittle me, throwing sarcastic remarks my way whenever he had the chance. But his words no longer held power over me. Every insult he hurled only fueled my determination to leave. The job applications started turning into interviews, and soon, I had multiple offers on the table. Then, one day, I received an email that changed everything. A leading competitor in our industry had seen my work and was interested in hiring me. Not just for any position, but for a leadership role. The interview process was intense, but I was prepared. They asked about my skills, my experience, and how I handled challenges. I told them about the projects I had managed, the problems I had solved, and the strategies I had implemented to improve efficiency. They were impressed. A few days later, I received the official offer. The salary was nearly double what I was making. The benefits were exceptional. And the best part? I would be leading a project that my current company had struggled with for months. It felt like the perfect opportunity, the kind of break I had been waiting for. But I wasn't going to leave quietly. I wanted to make sure my boss understood exactly what he had lost. So, I waited for the perfect moment to resign. An important client meeting was coming up, one that could bring in a multi-million-dollar deal. My boss was relying on me to handle the presentation, knowing I was the only one with enough expertise to pull it off. The night before the meeting, I printed my resignation letter and placed it in an envelope. The next morning, I walked into his office with confidence, my heart pounding, but my resolve unshaken. He barely looked up from his computer when I entered. "What do you want?" he asked, sounding irritated as usual. I placed the envelope on his desk. "My resignation, effective immediately." His eyes snapped up to mine, his expression shifting from annoyance to shock. "What?" "I'm leaving the company, today." He grabbed the envelope and tore it open, his hands tightening around the paper as he read. "You can't just leave," he sputtered. "We have the client meeting in an hour. You're the one handling the presentation." I shrugged, feeling a sense of satisfaction rise in me. "I know, but I don't work here anymore." His face turned red with frustration. He opened his mouth to argue, but before he could say another word, his phone rang. I stood there, watching as he answered, his expression darkening with each passing second. The client had canceled the meeting. They had decided to go with another firm. My new firm. His eyes flickered back to me, realization dawning. You did this?" His voice was laced with disbelief and anger. I smiled. "Not intentionally, but yes, I'm leading the project now. The same one you thought I was useless for." For the first time in 3 years, my boss had nothing to say. He simply sat there, speechless, as I turned around and walked out of his office for the last time. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I had won. As I stepped out of that building, the weight on my shoulders lifted. I had spent years giving my best to a company that never appreciated me, but now I was moving on to something bigger and better. My ex-boss had made a terrible mistake. He had underestimated me, and in the end, he was the one left regretting it.